passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Today, I am thrilled to have Susan Baroncini-Moe on the show. Susan is the author of the best-selling Business in Blue Jeans, How to Have a Successful Business on Your Own Terms in Your Own Style. She is an executive coach and a digital marketing strategist. Recently named one of Online Marketing Institute's top 40 digital marketers of 2014, she regularly speaks to audiences of all sizes and has shared the stage with business giants like Michael E. Gerber, Bob Burg, Larry Winget, among others. Susan and her businesses have been featured in Redbook Magazine, USA Today, MSN Living, Investors Business Daily, Yahoo Finance, and American Express Open Forum, and she is a Guinness World Records title holder. You can find more articles by and information about Susan at businessinbluejeans.com. Hello, Susan, and welcome.
Hi, Josh. Thanks for having me. I'm euphoric to be here.
Oh, I love that. What a start to the show. So listen, you are an experienced entrepreneur, author, and you have a lot of experience in obviously digital marketing, digital media, and with startups. And I know we have a limited amount of time this morning, and so I want to focus it on providing some great information to help some of the startup entrepreneurs out there who are perhaps just launched a business, maybe they've bought a franchise, but they're just now getting in the game. And so I'd like to kick it off by asking you, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew when you had launched your first business?
Oh, gosh, the list is long and time is short. I would say that, I think that we've seen something really interesting happening in entrepreneurship in the last year or 2 years, maybe the last year or so. And that thing is that more and more entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, are coming out and saying, we don't talk about this, but entrepreneurship is really hard. And you want to, believe in the stories about success and how easy it is and how you have the dream life and all of that. But the truth is, all those successful people out there who are saying that you only have to work 2 days a week or, 4 hours in a week or whatever, they're all working way more than that. So, the truth is, it's hard to be an entrepreneur. It is. And it's stressful and it's scary and it's wonderful and enthralling and exciting and it's everything. So, we want to believe in the myths, but you have to believe in the whole package and it comes good and bad. So I guess if I had known that, I think I would have been perhaps better prepared for the roller coaster.
Yeah, but maybe it would have delayed you even more, right?
Well, no, actually, I really think that, I think there are too many people out there, too many people, companies, entities that are making promises that aren't fair, aren't accurate. And that's kind of my pet peeve is, let's be honest. Growing a business that is actually a successful, profitable business that has real potential for the future and that will last and stand the test of time, it's not easy. And there is no true get rich quick. I don't care if you're in a franchise with systems. I don't care if you're going out on your own. I don't care if you're hiring the latest, greatest internet marketer. The bottom line is it's hard and it should be hard, but the payoff is there. And so, today versus where I was, 15 years ago when I first started out is a very different story. But boy, did I pay my dues and put in my time to get here.
Well, I'm so glad. I'm really so glad you mentioned that because, yeah, it is a problem. People feel like, they see some of these. A lot of times it's online entrepreneurs because they're, selling the whole idea that you just put everything together. You build your system. You automate everything. You get your auto responders. And while that's great for building systems, I know a lot of really successful online entrepreneurs. Let me just say this. They're working a hell of a lot of hours. But I think the distinction is is that they have been able to position themselves that they can work from a lot of different places, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to work a lot of hours. And I think that's what's falling through the cracks. And you're right. And you talk about this in your book, which is fantastic, that there really are no shortcuts to success. And I don't care what you do. I mean, people talk about, and I talk about systems all the time, but putting systems in place, it's not like you just set something up and then you forget about it. I mean, you're constantly working on your business. You're constantly evolving. And if you're not, you're really not going to be around that long.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there are shortcuts. I mean, there are some. Let me rephrase that. There are no shortcuts to get rich quick. But there's a great book that just came out in September by a guy named Shane Snow, and he's this really phenomenally smart guy. And his book is called Smart Cuts. And he talks a lot about how, like we have this idea, there are all these really successful entrepreneurs. Many of us who are successful today have had lots of failure in our past, but it's not the failure that gets you to the success. It's not like, okay, I got to put in 5 failures before I get to the success. It's I learn from the failures and then I take what I learned and I do something better with it. Or I learn from the people I see who are my peers who have failed, and I learn from that and apply that to what I'm doing today. So, this book he wrote talks about how to be smart about the shortcuts you take. So they're not shortcuts per se, but they're ways to work smarter. And I think that, putting systems in place is just one of many ways to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've never heard of the book, so I'm excited to go check that out. Thanks for mentioning that.
I'll warn you, it's a very frustrating read. You're going to start each chapter going, yeah, this is what I know. I totally. And then he goes, nope. All that stuff that I just said, that's not true.
Oh, really?
And every chapter he sucked me in and got me.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I mean, along this same thing, tell me what are 2 or 3 of the biggest mistakes that you see a lot of startups or a lot of startup entrepreneurs making, and how can they be avoided?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first one is what we've been talking about, is expecting it to be easy and quick and not being prepared for the long haul. Any business that is going to last the test of time, and we're not talking about, the quick tech startup and all of that, but any real substantial business that's going to stand the test of time is really going to be one you're going to have to put the time and effort into, especially in the initial stages. So that's the first one, is really not being prepared. The second one is not guarding their mindset. And I know that sounds really coachy, but the truth is our mindset guides everything. So if you're not super protective with the way that you think about yourself and your potential and your business, then you can really sabotage yourself before you even have a chance to get started. And I would say the third one is not having a full understanding that it's all about your target market. And if you don't have a super clear target market and you don't know who you're doing things for and exactly what you're doing for them, then you're going to have a much tougher time. You've got to get really, really strong clarity and start from a place of clarity. Otherwise, you're really in a mess.
And target market, I want to focus on that third one because that's a real big buzzword or buzz phrase nowadays. And I talk about it a lot and you hear about it a lot. And I think we all as entrepreneurs are striving to really define and redefine and just stay in our lane, right? Find that market. Do you find it, have you ever seen a business when they start off that maybe they're too niched or too focused? I know that's kind of a weird question, but we always talk about getting niche, but is it possible to be too niched when you're starting out? Because maybe you don't have a crystal clear identity. You have sort of some thoughts about what your target market is. Or do you suggest that you should get crystal clear before you even launch that business?
Well, choosing a target market can be really tricky. So, let's focus on like the service industry. For example, you and I are both in service-based businesses. We offer professional services. And in that situation, I do think you need to look at your history and what your expertise is in and what you really enjoy doing. And you have to build a story around that. And I think that when you craft that storyline and you craft that history, you can really make a strong case for a good target market and you can really reach a strong target market. Now, you have to also do your market research. So when you look at, where you're doing business, so let's say, for example, we're here in Indianapolis, both of us. And isn't it weird that we're both in Indianapolis, by the way, and we're in totally separate recording locations?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is true.
Oh, but anyway, I think that when you're let's say you're in a one geographic location. Of course, you and I do business nationwide, and I do business globally. But I think that when you're looking at your local area, if you're going to do business locally, you really want to think about if there are enough people in the target market you've defined that can really sustain your business. And that's true whether, you're going to be doing business in a small geographic region or you're doing business nationally. And if there are not enough people to sustain you, you need to grow that a little bit. So it's a combination to me of your expertise, your experience, your skill set, what you really enjoy doing and who you enjoy working with, as well as, is there a big enough target market to sustain you?
Well, and here's the thing that I think gets people hung up a lot, and I don't know if you agree with this or disagree with this, but what I find is that people are afraid to identify what they really believe their target market is because they feel like they're leaving people out. In other words, they're scared of the no, or they're scared of identifying, this is who I am, this is where I'm targeting, because they're like, well, if this person called me, I'd probably think about it, or I'd probably take that in. And I get that fear, but what I always suggest is that just because you're marketing yourself to a particular clientele doesn't mean that when somebody contacts you outside of that specific area, you can make that decision as they come about. So as an example, I'll take myself. I mean, I've got my website's indiefranchiselaw.com. I do a lot of franchise work, but I also work with a lot of entrepreneurs that haven't bought franchise and aren't turning their business into a franchise, but I'm helping them build the proper foundations. Well, I can still do a lot of that, but I still focus my marketing on a really niche area. And so I'm curious what you think about that, because I think that is the one thing that really gets people hung up from getting real specific. Because people will go, oh, yeah, I target small business. And it's like, really? Really? I mean, there's a lot of small businesses out there. Who are you really targeting? What do you think about that?
I think what you said is exactly dead on. And it's exactly the experience I've had. And I hear from, I work with clients all the time and helping them to achieve that clarity around their target market. And it's funny because that is the thing I hear the most. Well, I would work with another kind of company if they came to me. Okay, great, do that. But that's not what we're doing when we choose a target market. When we choose a target market, we are defining the core of the business and who we're going to brand for, market for. But if someone else comes through that door, like for example, with business and blue jeans, more often than not, my clients are women. Now, I don't actually specifically brand to attract women, but I think because I am a woman, I'm a strong woman, women are generally, they're attracted to working with me. And it's weird, like most of my clients become friends, because I don't try to keep clients forever. My clients are loyal, but I try to, push them out of the nest. It's my mission.
Yeah.
It's there are a lot of coaches that try to keep people dependent, and I'm kind of the opposite of that. I just don't really want my clients to be dependent on me. But I think that when you create a target market, it's important to understand that. And in fact, you're going to see some changes in the business and blue jeans brand a little bit in coming months, because we are actually doing a little bit more around our target market, and we're expanding our target market and kind of creating a new company. And so Greater Impact Marketing will be a company that focuses more heavily on organizations and foundations and emerging businesses in a way that's different than the way we help people with business and blue jeans. And the reason is that we recognize that there are companies that are now becoming aware of us, and they don't really fit into the business and blue jeans market. Like business and blue jeans is really more about the small micro entrepreneur. Certainly there's a lot in the book that meets the needs of larger, growing businesses, but it really is more about the mom and pop shop and people working from home and doing more flexible work. So we needed a different brand that would meet the needs of larger enterprises. And I think that sometimes you have to know if a brand is holding you back, or if your target market is kind of like putting you in a box and you need to, spread your wings a little. So it's not like what you decide today is the thing that will always guide you. You can always make changes. You can always change course a little bit. And certainly that's something I've done over the years. And I think that it's okay to do. So not only is it not the kind of, hard and fast box that we think it is, but it's also not permanent. You can evolve.
And you must evolve, right? I mean, I truly
Yeah.
believe that you're either, as a business, just as a human, you're either growing or you're dying. Well, we're all sort of dying. I mean, that sounds horrible, but I mean, as a business, you're not staying stagnant. In life, we don't stay stagnant. In business, we don't stay stagnant. And I think it's a great point that you bring up, and that I'm really glad you talk about it, because these are kinds of decisions that entrepreneurs are faced with every single day. I think people do have a false notion that, you start your business, you have your target market, you go, you build up a client base, and boom, you're off to the races. Well, that's true in part, but you're always defining and redefining and more importantly, refining who you are, what you do. And a lot of that can't happen until you get in the game, but you still have to have a clear picture before you start the game. And so I'm really glad you mentioned that, because those are the kinds of things I don't think a lot of people think about when they dive into business. But I want to take a little bit of a turn here and focus on, you talked about digital media. I know that's one of your focal points. And so what are some specific steps that startup entrepreneurs can take when they are just getting started to begin to brand themselves and build a digital media footprint that's going to attract the people that they want to attract?
Well, the first thing is take it slow, because I think that we have this myth out there that I have to be on every platform, in every social media place. I have to be everywhere. And it's an overwhelming task to try to do. And what I'm finding more and more, we know that, over 62% of businesses outsource their digital marketing because it's too big a task. And there are so many pieces to it that is almost impossible. If you're a small business and it's just you, there's no way you can do it all. If you're a small business and you have one marketing coordinator, there's no way that person can do it all. And you're doing both you and them a huge disservice to expect that of them, because at this point in the game, digital marketing has a lot of areas to it, and they all require slightly different skill sets. So for any business to find one person, or to be one person that can do all of it, would be almost impossible. So we're kind of in this space with digital marketing that it really is overwhelming for most businesses. So the first step is take it slow. The second step is figure out where your target market is and where they're spending most of their time. That's where you should be spending most of your time. So it's fine to have a social media account on a lot of platforms. It's good for SEO, it's good for business, but that doesn't mean you have to keep them active. So if you are primarily business oriented and you do business with serious businesses, maybe Twitter is not the appropriate place for you. If you're looking for 50-year-old vice presidents of, large corporations, don't waste your time with Twitter. You should be on LinkedIn. Having a Google Plus profile is kind of a must for every business, but only because it requires, it brings with it some search engine optimization benefits. Not a ton, but some. The other thing is be aware of the impact of big data on small business. One thing that a lot of business owners are not aware of is that big data now is so involved and in such insidious ways. And as a marketer, I both love this and I love this, but as a human being, I hate it. So here's the deal. When you set up your business, you set up various kinds of accounts. Maybe you set up an account for your internet. Maybe you set up an account for the tools you use in your business, or you set up an account with an office supply company and you buy furniture. And all of those companies create data points because they put your name in their customer database. Well, human beings are writing those entries. And so some people are going to say, 111 Main Street spelled out. Some are going to say 111 Main Street ST. And it's all going to be just slightly different. Some will put suite, some won't, some will put number. Here's what happens. That data becomes a commodity that gets sold to quote unquote big data companies. That data then gets sold to companies that want to create these directory listing sites. And every place that you have created an account, if all of those data points are different, even something as simple as your suite number being different, or like the word suite being spelled STE or being represented as a number sign, or street versus ST, all of that inconsistency begins to hurt your placement in search engines. And it's this funny thing that happens without your knowledge, permission, or consent. nor can you get in easily and change it. And if you did, you would have to go to so many sites to change it. You would spend all your time doing that versus running your business. So I think it's really important for businesses to know about this really insidious thing. We have started, kind of going in and cleaning all that up for our clients, and helping our clients to determine where's the best place. Because if you're focused on, are my directory listings accurate and up to date, and are they, consistent, then you're not focusing on the more important pieces of where should I be and where should my presence be known, and how do I position myself, and what kind of content should I be using, and should I be doing video or podcasting or any of these other things. So what we do is we kind of take care of the stuff that you shouldn't have to worry about and clean that up. And then we help companies to understand and determine where they should be to build that footprint. It is an extraordinarily complex place to be in today. So
yeah, it's complex. I mean, it's complex. It's scary. I mean, I think there's a lot of, as you just talked about and highlighted so well, I mean, there's a lot of technical aspects that, constantly are changing. And it's basically impossible to stay on top of, but you're trying to maneuver through these technical and tactical fields, but you're trying to do it in a way with a story, right? Defining your own story, which is ultimately going to build your brand. It seems to me like that's one of the things you guys focus on and do particularly well, is helping the entrepreneur craft their story and get it noticed.
Exactly. And I think that's important, because if you have not taken the time to craft your own story, not only will it be confusing and murky, and, we're in, again, for better or worse, we're in a world where, people like to sum you up quickly. So, I get summed up all the time. Oh, that's the business in blue jeans woman, and people expect me to wear blue jeans, and that's fine. I don't always wear blue jeans, for the record. Often, yes, but not constantly. And I think that, people want to be able to sum you up. And so they want to say, oh, that person helps, emerging businesses or small businesses. Oh, this person is an expert in digital media. And it does get complicated when you're someone like me and you do a lot of things for your clients. It does get difficult to kind of be branded in a way that makes it simple for people to understand. And so I that's because I've struggled with that myself over the years. I've become an expert at it because I've worked so hard to craft my own brand over the years and to gain my own clarity. It's a big challenge.
Oh, sure. Well, and I've got a ton of other questions I'd love to ask you, but we are short on time. Maybe sometime in the future we'll do like a Q&A or something together here in Indianapolis. That would be awesome.
It would be fun, yeah.
Yeah, we should do that. I do want to end the show because, tying in with the whole story, I want people to know you a little bit better on a personal level. And so I want to ask, I'm going to end the show with, a series of 5 sort of quick questions. I just want you to give a response that first pops in your head. Does that sound all right?
I love it. Yes.
All
Go.
Right, let's do it. What's the most important business or other discovery that you have made in the last year?
Oh my gosh. I guess for myself, the biggest discovery for me has been that part of my work has to be with foundations, organizations, social entrepreneurs, helping other people to do good in the world, because in doing that, I then am doing more good.
What is one word you would use to describe yourself as a child?
Talkative.
Fill in the blank. If you really knew me, you'd know.
If you really knew me, you'd know how important my family is to me.
I love that. What characteristic do you most admire in others?
Oh, gosh, what a good question. What characteristic do I most admire in others? I'm a real clutter bug, and I always have kind of, my desk is a disaster, and I know where everything is, but it's always a little crazy. So not being a clutter bug.
That's great. And finally, given one choice, would you rather be liked or respected?
Wow. I think it would be so funny if I actually just had seriously answered this question. Oh, no, Josh, I would like to be feared. But that's not the truth. So that's not my answer. I just think it would be funny if it was. And also terrible. I guess I would like to be liked.
Great. Well, listen, Susan, this has been awesome. You're easy to talk to, great to talk to. Tell people where they can find you, best reach you, and anything else that you want to finish off the show with.
Oh, it's just easy to find me. You just go to businessinbluejeans.com, and that's pretty simple.
Well, listen, you're doing great stuff, and look forward to staying in touch with you, and thanks again for your time and coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.